experience is when I use the ChatGPT, it is too talkative, I think. There's provided lots of the information. That's why sometimes it's really hard for us to just observe all the information that ChatGPT provides when we ask something. So that's why I don't think the ChatGPT as it is not a good program to help the students just improve their language, the skills. So that's why we try to develop some types of web-based chatbot, or I try to ChatGPT embedded it in the Google Spread or Google Sheet. So that's what I usually do. Then the other one is that I just look at the previous study. A lot of the language programs just use the ChatGPT nowadays. So they try to find out what kind of benefits the language learners could get from this ChatGPT. And what I found is just there's a lot of the researchers just try to find out that ChatGPT just as provides rich input necessary in the learning and foreign language. But as I told you before, this rich input could be sometimes it's unnecessary information given to. That's why I try to control or manage how the ChatGPT responds to the student, just a product or skills, language skills. Then the other one is the Kim and Smith Fazil just found out that this ChatGPT feedback is kind of very useful to learn the grammar, especially they talk about the English grammar. Then the other one is nowadays Korean researchers focus on how the students develop their vocabulary knowledge using this kind of AI program. And the last one is there's another way. People try to see how the students just get help from the ChatGPT to improve their speaking skills and written skills. But based on those previous study, we try to, Dr. Lee and I try to find out how an AI-based ChatGPT help the English learners develop their English proficiency. So here's this, I just mentioned the English proficiency. There's some reason you can see it later. And there are two research questions. Since we have two pilot studies, which just employed the ChatGPT in the different formats. The first one is just feedback on the English grammar from the ChatGPT, more beneficial than that from the native speaker of English for Korean English learners. Then the second pilot study, we try to find out how ChatGPT influences on improving English learners' politeness and formality in request and refusal based on their L1 language background. So there are two different groups in this study. So I just want to talk about the first group, which is a pilot study A. And the first pilot study, there were 39 English learners with low language proficiency. So all of the students just have their English proficiency at the base of the code score is below 450. It's a very low language skills. So that's why the ChatGPT provided the feedback in English the students couldn't understand. So that's why I tried to embed the ChatGPT program in the Google Sheet. Then this one is I also just only use the edit program from the ChatGPT. So I will show you the example later. Then there are two groups. The first one is I don't want to say this is a control group or experimental group. This is just quasi-experimental study. There's a reason I'm not sure which group just has better kind of improvement in the English grammar. So I just only compare the two groups. One group is native speaker group, which means that there are actually there were the 19 students, but what I said right, I just mentioned the 13 learners. It means that I asked the students to take the pre and post test, but only 13 students from the native groups took the pre-test and the post-test together. So that's why I only have the 13, and the ChatGPT group is a 14. And So she usually she teaches just like a pre-service teachers in America. So I asked the pre-service teachers to give some feedback on my students, like writing. So usually like they try to give some kind of grammatical errors and why this is not incorrect, or just give some kind of the explanation about then the other one is editing the grammar. Then ChatGPT is the same. ChatGPT, but there's some limitation in my program here. ChatGPT only edit. There's no explanation. So the students just mentioned it later when I talk, the students, ask the students how they feel like using the ChatGPT. Then the next, that's what I said, is the treatment is the in pilot study A is one is the native speaker group and the other one is the ChatGPT group. So I will show you the like example here. Yeah, this one is the native student. So I probably hold on, please. I can see the example on my computer screen, but doesn't show here. Just share the screen of the computer, please. Yeah, that's what I trying to say. Can you see? Okay, great. So I always every week we have the topic, then the expression. I just teach you have to use this expression. Then this one is just from my like example. Then students just try to answer. Then the students get the feedback from the American student. Then they just explain what they feel about this kind of the suggestion, and they have to try to finalize this sentence. So this is how I just incorporate the Google Sheet and the ChatGPT together. Then the next one is then ChatGPT group is it's the same form. Everything is same, just only except using the ChatGPT or native speaker. So ChatGPT, I just using the same way the topic and the expression, the question, and their kind of the writing. Then the ChatGPT gives some editing. Then students should reply, just leave their feedback about the edition, and they have to finalize their answer. And then the next part is, then I said that I asked my participants to take the pre-test and the post-test. So we have like a 1 semester program. So it's like almost they have there was like a 3.5 month interval from between the pre-test and the post-test. Since I don't have not many participants, I just run non-parametric analysis, which means just when we do your test and we exercise the rapid test. So there's two purposes that I explained in the next slide. The first one is the when we do your test. The first one is I just verified that there's no differences between the two groups just on the pre-test. So I found that there's no differences, significance is bigger than 0.5. Well, there's no statistically significant differences between the two groups. And it shows the graph. Then next part, I just run the when between you test one more time to compare the English grammar competence between the two groups after having each treatment. Each treatment means the native speaker group and the ChatGPT group. So as you can see, this table. ChatGPT native speaker group, their mean score is a 13.54, and the ChatGPT group, just the mean score is a 13.47. So the native speaker group slightly higher in the mean score than the ChatGPT group. But when I look at their significance, the p-value, it doesn't show the significance difference. So, but I use the same questions on the pre-test and the post-test, since we have a 3.5-month interval. So I don't expect the student to remember all the answers. Another reason is I didn't review the pre-test questions right after taking the pre-test. So they didn't know the answer on the pre-test. So that's why I don't think the pre-test influence on the post-test result. But anyway, there's not much difference between these two groups. So, but as I mentioned, the native groups a little bit higher than their mean scores. But when I look at the graph here, what I found is this blue one is just the native groups, and this red one is just the ChatGPT group. So ChatGPT groups students has just kind of there were a few students with a higher score, but there's I remember one student pretty just achieved the lower score compared to the native speaker. But the native speaker groups, their kind of the score on the post test is a pretty kind of spread out, which means we usually, as I'm a quantitative researcher, so we like this kind of normal distribution just rather than the ChatGPT groups here. Then the next one is I ran the Wilcoxon Science Rank test, which to investigate how beneficial the feedback from the native speakers English is. So there's a kind of my hope. I would like to prove the people is better than ChatGPT. That's why I just focus on the native speakers groups more than the ChatGPT group here. So I found is all the students in the native speaker group improve their grammar skills, grammar knowledges. We can see their kind of the mean scores on the post test is higher than their mean scores on the pre-test. But this one is not much the significant difference. But I found out that there's many students, more students actually, I don't want to say too many, more students just improve their grammar knowledge. Then you can see the blue one is their positive difference. The negative is they don't improve much. But then the next one is ChatGPT group is the same. I just do that in the same way. So I use the Wilcoxon Science Rank test. Then this one is pre and post test. But there you can see some of I can see how many 6 students just improve a lot compared to the rest of the students. That's why the ChatGPT groups just have kind of showed the higher kind of the mean scores. So that's my first study. And what I found is then the other one is I asked the students how they felt about or just give some opinions on their the activity, classroom activity. So from the native groups, just what they said, they just can improve the grammar. So it's a great learning grammar, grammar with the native speakers. So that they just wrote the inquiry that I just translated in English here. So you can see. The next part is they think it's a great. They can correct their grammatical mistakes. It's the same way they talking about they have some experience. They feel like I can just improve my grammar. The next one is they said the satisfaction. Most of the students mentioned that they kind of satisfied with the class, and the other one is they also the good thing is they can get some explanation here. So what they said is I just feel like I have the personal tutor in the class. Then the other one is ChatGPT groups just talking about reason is that a lot of the language learners with the low language proficiency always concerned, what if I make a mistake in grammar? So that's why they say, but when they work with a person, they always kind of hesitate to say something or write something. But since this is ChatGPT, it's not a person, so that's why they said they kind of easily write there's making their sentence or say something, even though there's a lot of the mistakes. So they said that it's a great to decrease my anxiety. Then it's a filling of the gap means I always feel like my English skills is not good enough. But when I use this, the program, I just feel like I can make something perfect. So that's what they said. Then the other one is compared to the native speakers, the ChatGPT group just mentioned that it was great to receive the immediate feedback. But the native groups, when they wrote something on their Google, their workplace, they have to wait like a few days because the American students just assess their Google workspace, they have to correct it. So, but the ChatGPT groups just can, right after they wrote something, the ChatGPT provided the feedback immediately. So that is the good part they say. But I remember the two students just talking about some doubt, their doubt on the AI product. They just said people just kind of believe in the ChatGPT too much. So even though the class was fun, but this class activity did not relieve their doubt on the ChatGPT help. So they still doubt is true or not about their work. And next part is the pilot study B is slightly quite a lot different from the pilot study A. The pilot study B is we just did Dr. Lee and I developed the web-based chatbot. The previous pilot study A just only give some feedback on the grammar mistake. But the pilot study B is just like the conversation role play. So the study purpose is how language learners develop their communication skills in terms of politeness and formality in the conversation. So there were at the first time there are two different groups. I just said the pilot study A student, a student in the pilot study A with the very low English proficiency. But pilot study B, the student is kind of advanced English language learners. So most of the students have achieved the IELTS score is above the 5.5. So I can consider they are kind of the advanced language learners. But their first language is diverse. So I just have 7 English learners with different L1 language background as well as advanced English proficiency. So I have 1 Chinese student and 1 Kazakh and 2 Korean and 1 Uruguay and 2 students from the Uzbekistan. And the pilot study, the B is treatment is what I said is this is a pre-constructed role play with a generative AI. Then we put some prompt and the ChatGPT. You just kind of assume that you are like a professor, you are like the person who has a higher social status than your student. So they have the role play with ChatGPT, and also I just left some prompt. You have to give some feedback on the student's product, the utterances, on the in terms of politeness and grammar mistakes, and when they practice how to test and how to refuse. This one, what kind of the program we use is, this is as I mentioned, this is a web-based chatbot. We use the Netlify to deploy this website, but we use the kind of coding data from GitHub, and this is the example. So the first day students have to you missed the class because of the list, so you missed a quiz. So you have to ask professor to take the quiz, and that's what we have to make the conversation here. So let me. Yeah, I just want to move the next one. And the students have these types of the 3 different tests. It's I use the same kind of coding program, but the prompt is different. I ask like what is it? Put the prompt in the chat, the amplify. Then it kind of the amplify also using the API key, so it's incorporated in the chat. So then we try to analyze how the students just respond, or just how they kind of change their behavior in terms of the politeness or diffuser based on their L1 background. So this one is a politeness on the right, left side, and the formality is right side. So you can see here. So since we don't have enough writers on the next part, so you can say that was a student. I don't believe me. Then Korea says, can I? So could you? The Korea said, could you? So they can kind of understand the politeness. Just you have to use the could. But this one is a little bit tricky. So we said then like the ChatGPT gives some information. When you talk with somebody who has a higher social status, you have to say, or you can use this kind of expression. Then what we found from this analysis on their students kind of conversation. At the first time we thought probably depends on the L1 background. The students have some kind of their result or various, but actually there's a very minimal influence of L1. The students just their native language or native like culture. There's very little impact on their ability to use polite and formal English. But what we found is just the English proficiency is more determinant than there's like their first language. So their English proficiency was a strong determinant of the pragmatic skills, in, especially the distance test and the future. Then the other one is students just I told you we had these students just took the 3 different tasks. So whenever they move the next task, they kind of applied what the ChatGPT suggests on their the conversation. That's what I found. Then this one is the next step, the participant utterance. Then ChatGPT feedback. Your request is clear. Then just the ChatGPT provides some information. Then the students kind of apply this the ChatGPT feedback or when they have the next task. This one is the same way. The formalities are pretty similar. The ChatGPT said it's a polite, but you have to be the more formal. Then they apologize, but and the other one is like thank you, have a great day as well. So some students just didn't understand the kind of the politeness pretty well. So that's then they learn something from the ChatGPT feedback. And this one is the same feedback. Actually, Dr. Lee just analyzes a part of the B part, so she has the better idea, the more information that I have. And this is our study about the 2 pilot study. And we try to improve this pilot study to conduct some type of experimental study, hopefully this semester. But we would like to listen your feedback or suggestions and how we can just change change this the pilot study to make a strong the experimental study.
All right, thank you for the wonderful talk. It was very well timed as well, thank you. So now we have about 11 minutes for Q&A, for questions. So please, anyone?
I know, I just kind of quickly, move to the research part.
Please.
Loud enough, right? Let's see if I have to use that one. Yeah, so the pilot A, did I understand you saying that the ChatGPT only
ChatGPT, the Google Sheet just only Google kind of the tools only embedded the function of the ChatGPT. There are a couple of the the program.
Right, but then you have a confound, right? Because you have a human being who
Yes.
does give feedback.
Yes, that's
And a
true.
robot that is not allowed to because you said you're not allowed, even though it can give feedback. Because I was thinking, your impression as a teacher is that the feedback on the grammar level and the study A topic is not good. But I mean, what I would do is, if you're asking for feedback on this experiment, would be to do a kind of a little minimal qualitative corpus analysis.
Yes.
To collect some human generated feedback and then ChatGPT and then look at the texts.
Yes.
Because your impression is that the texts are not as good for ChatGPT or something, but maybe you're wrong, maybe you're right. So if you get some sort of sense of what is the difference of the actual data before you run the experiment to see what effects it has on learning, because is there any difference? And then another related question is, how do you know this human teacher is any good? Or are you intentionally hobbling the ChatGPT to make it worse? Because I know ChatGPT is not very good at style. So I've seen a paper where they try to get it to simulate different people's styles, and you can actually see statistically that it's still not matching the target because the way these things learn is they have a massive training. But you could, for example, make a totally fair test, where we take a teacher you think is good, and then have ChatGPT learn their style. It's sort of it's like a robot version of that particular person. But of course, if your goal is to see can a student learn from ordinary kind of off-the-shelf ChatGPT, then that wouldn't be the right test. So you really have to decide. It's not just human versus robot, right? It's specifically the details of what the human is doing, what the robot's doing. You need to know more about that before you make any claims. Of course, as you also know, that your sample sizes are way too small to do anything good. But I don't need to remind you of that. So I'm just saying, for your larger study, you should first look at what is the nature of the two conditions. So make them more matched, or make them more naturalistic, or something. So you really your conclusions will be practical, right? And also theoretically interesting.
Thanks for your suggestion. Because I definitely agree with what you said. Just that because the ChatGPT doesn't give any kind of explanation what is wrong there. Just the kind of editing the grammatical mistakes. So that's why I also just concerned this is not a kind of the balanced the feedback because the native speakers just give some kind of explanation. But the
You can just tell the native speakers not to give an explanation. So
yeah.
Right?
That's true.
And then you could even, it would be easier because then you could train ChatGPT on how they edit and then whatever. But yeah, you want to match them. Of course, you're hoping ChatGPT will be bad because then you lose your job. So you have this intrinsic bias. So you really want to make the test fair.
So probably if I could get a better result, I would not say that this is a pilot study. But that's why I just after I just took this kind of the experiment, I just found that there's not much difference between the two groups. So that's then I would like to improve some part how then the other one is probably the pre-test and the post-test to not be a good kind of the test items. So that's why I cannot show any difference between the pre-test and the post-test.
You need a real control condition.
Yes,
to make it
right.
work.
Yes.
Because maybe they're just getting better in general.
Right. That's true. Yeah. Thank you. And any other?
Other questions, please?
The study is very interesting, and I hope that I can try to understand your research. The question is, in your pilot study A, there are only two groups.
Yes.
And I'm wondering why why you don't choose another group? You have three groups. One is video sphere group, another is charity group, and the other one is the group that without interference of native speaker and ChatGPT. And in this case, you can show that ChatGPT is really helpful. There's no difference between ChatGPT group and the native speaker group.
The main reason I only have the two groups is I have two same intact classes. So that's why I cannot control the other kind of So that is the main reason. Then the other one is many people just talking about this ChatGPT can be replaced as a human teacher. So that's why I just try to compare what are the difference between the ChatGPT group and the native speaker, like a feedback. So that is my main purpose of the study. Yes. Sure.
Did you train your students how to use the prompts?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, like two kind of the pilot study. I then just we have the training sessions before using this program. Yeah.
That's all.
Do we have other questions or comments? And do we have questions from online? No. I don't know. No. If we have no other questions or comments for the moment, maybe we can thank our speaker again. Thank you. Thank you.